Nani online discussion, and today we have our only host, Madam FALECIA, and of course your guy, Sebastian ELIABU, as always. And today we'll be speaking of heritage and education. Now, before we go on to heritage and education, last week we spoke of heritage and technology. Hope you guys did catch up on the last session, and we went deep, and we spoke of we knew that we couldn't speak of it in a half an hour, so we kind of took it into the, let's say this is the second episode of heritage and technology, because we went more into it, and we found that there is an issue about education into heritage, and then maybe next time we'll speak of education and technology. So yeah, we based so much on, we did based on culture and traditions. Yes, yeah. So welcome, Madam FALECIA.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, let me welcome you first, because I just went into it very quick. Yeah, and welcome our viewers. Yeah, hopefully you will join us, and you know, if you got any questions or anything, you might just comment, and we'll see it, and we'll engage you. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Mine too.
Okay. Yeah, I think last session was really interesting. Talking about heritage and technology.
Yes.
And yeah, it brought up a lot of interesting issues as far as you know, how do we preserve, how do we understand the things that are passed on to us from our past generations in terms of the traditions, the culture, and as well as you know, the history that comes with it, and how technology plays a big role in doing all that.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know whether I should.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let's say we spoke of heritage into how we could embrace it, and yeah, through technology, of course. But through embracing it, we knew that I came to understand that there is bad heritage and good heritage. Yeah. So how can we you know, differentiate between bad heritage and good heritage?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think, okay, connecting to the last session again,
Yes.
we talked about the thing about value, like what it's about valuing what is passed on to you, and I remember we questioned about it, like, should it be, when we talk of heritage, we should attach value to it, and of course, for you to say this is bad heritage or this is good, I think it depends with how familiar you are with that as first thing. So now that already connects it to education, because you need to understand all of it, all of the heritage, and then to know this is bad and this is good. So for instance, like Africa and the history of colonialism, and how that affected you know, the generations that came afterwards. And now there are things that, you know, they're part of the history, they're part of us, and now how do we differentiate, you know, the bad lessons and the good lessons? Now that becomes you know, it depends on a society, how they are educated and how they choose, you know, to view that as a bad thing, and how does that, you know, negatively affect them. Yeah, because something can be, you know, a bad experience can be used for good. So things like that. The same way with traditions. Not every tradition that was passed on to us was good. For instance, the female genital mutilation that is so much prevalent in some of the societies, especially, you know, the Ethiopian, Somalian, some parts in Tanzanian tribes as well. And, you know, for them, if you, from what I read and what I see, like, if you go into those cultures, into those traditions, for them it is something of value. You cannot tell them anything about it, that is negative. But the consequences are the ones that, they are very bad. So how do you educate such a society? How do you help them to basically detach themselves from something that has been, identifying them over many years as part of their tradition, as part of who they are? So, that's...
Okay. Yes, welcome Kevin. So for those who are joining us, the session today is about heritage and education. So now we're talking about how is heritage good or bad. Yes, you just said about the difference, and you showed us how, some traditions take it, do give it to other generations because they think it has some certain values, it carries something, yes? But I believe anything bad has negative effects.
Yes.
I'm not sure about if good heritage has some negative effects. I'm just saying because the bad heritage, it shows like it's in the open. Yes. Yeah, so I do not know why people still carry it. Then I think it brings us to education, as you have said. Yeah, maybe they do not have what do we say, what do we call it, the senses,
the awareness.
The awareness.
Yeah, because I once listened to a documentary about people who have gone through, this is an example, and it's a very huge issue in our communities when it comes to FGM. A lady who, the tradition of circumcising women starts from when they're young, like very young girls. And at that time, it's like a huge celebration that, every young girl is aspiring to be, because they don't know what happens during that celebration. So for them, in their mindset, how they're raised up, it's like something that a girl child should look forward to. And after you have gone through that stage is when you're considered, a girl who is, like worthy and things like that. And so for this child, because she's not educated, she's not aware, she does not know the consequences. All that she sees is that celebration, is that perception. But until when she goes through that process and understands that, it's unbearable, the most unbearable experience, the bleeding, the worst, that is when she's deserted, and she understands that it was the worst idea to have. And for those who, at least, those who have older siblings, a sister passed through it, can tell you and help you, avoid it. But again, you cannot avoid it if your mom, your aunties, and everyone else, is forcing you to do that. So that is the problem. You're being grounded and have these ideas, and it's until you experience it. So
So you have said, okay, I want to like I want to say something, because you said until you have experienced it, then it's easy for you to not tell the other generation. And that means if it could be that way, I think it would have been maybe no more of FGM, I think, but still, as you have said, the aunties, the moms, I don't know, the grandparents, they do support it, maybe, because I just assume that they all have been through the same process. Yes. Now, how do they still want to, make their daughter or, their other fellows join in?
I think it's connected again to education, but also taboos. I mean, if
I think also men are into,
what?
Men are into processing. I mean, they are into it, like they do support that kind of thing, because as you have said, they maybe sometimes bring pressure to women to undergo the FGM.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know about that, because I think it affects, I know for women for sure, it affects even their reproductive health and even their mentality as well. So I wouldn't think that men would be the supporters.
No, I think they would be the supporters. I kind of saw a video, of some place. I can't mention the place, but it was a kind of a documentary. There is this a chief of some country.
Oh.
Yeah, he was really supporting it. Yeah, so
Okay.
they had to go through him so that he can, you know, end it. So he kind of did it till he got you know, a rule from the president that if game is no more in my country, then yeah.
Okay.
That's why
yeah,
I
I think that makes sense. And again, back to taboos.
Yeah.
Because you find these are older things, like they've been passed on to. It's like it's a must. It's something that is part of you. So to detach yourself, even if it doesn't make sense, you know, it's like my grandmother's grand went through this. Why can't I? So it is just that sense of, you know, belonging that people are seriously, even if it affects my health. I mean, if somebody went through this, I must go through this. It proves me worthy of my tradition or worthy of my tribe, something like that.
Okay, is it the only thing that, you know, describes the tradition, or because I think it's not. So
not,
so maybe we get back to educating. Yeah, maybe they do like, you know, some sort of education. Maybe this is something they should be, you know, taught maybe into schools or into centers or whatever. The education you can, you know, some NGOs try to give the education to people going into these, you know, rural areas, and maybe say, okay, this is bad, it affects your health, even, you know, but, you know, they try to make it very obvious. So
and again, with education, it links it again to technology, because these things were not reported, these things were not exposed. Even the way they're being done, it's in secret, like even where they're going to do that. So before, that's why people think it's something precious when it's not, because it was being done in secret. But with education, and people get to know the other side of you know, the negative effects, and there's a room where you can actually share the pain that you went through, because those perhaps the grandmothers and mothers, they never had that opportunity to share. They're just told to embrace it as part of them, so they grow up to be tough and things like that. But with education, it opens their minds, and again, they can actually, you know, expose their stories.
So I think bad heritage brings pain, you know, and happiness, and maybe sometimes death. So that's why we call it bad heritage, because the good heritage is all about, I think, dancing, you know, good areas, eating, you know, traditional food. That's all happiness and living. So maybe we should stick to good heritage. I just suggest, So yes, we come again to heritage and how we link heritage and education. Now, these days we see that a huge percentage of youth, like us, do not know a lot about you know, traditions, culture. So why do you think it's like that you do not know much of our heritage and culture, I mean, and tradition?
Yeah, I think first, you know, awareness starts from home.
Yes.
From home, how we are being raised. Again, that's the first school that, you know, we go to, especially when it comes to heritage, because there is where you're from, there's where you're born, and then you go to school. So I believe it's being taught, but now how it is taught, again, is another issue. And so these things are there, but it depends with the kinds of generations that we have. So you know, is it on day-to-day, you know, at home? How do parents speak to their children about, you know, their heritage? How, you know, the language, the culture. You find that nowadays, you know, families don't have time to spend together with their children, like eating time. And it's those conversations that, you know, bring questions and and answers and understanding of, you know, where the generations are from, things like that, what are passed on to those to the children. So that is how I think even the old times, how heritage was being passed on to. It could be through drawings, artwork, or oral traditions, the stories under a tree, under shade, or something like that, where people, you know, heard of the stories of the warriors and things like that being shared to children and children's children. But nowadays, you know, there's just no time for that at home. And again, when you go to school, it's like it's packaged in this boring stuff, you know, in civics, history, whereby, yeah, you know, it's not very attractive. You only read it for the exams, but not for the, you know, to be passionate about knowing who you are. And it's not translated in the everyday life, you know. So that becomes an issue. Like, you think it has to be very, very crude, very boring, but basically it has to be communicated in so many natural, different ways.
Yeah. So okay, maybe I can say something about it just a little, because as you have said, the parents maybe should teach the children since they are young, because at some point I think parents were just telling stories about the traditions and culture, but now after telling stories, it just ended there. It's like they weren't teaching them, and I can say anything, you know. There's a difference between telling a story and teaching. There's this saying these days, you say teach them young, you know. So teaching is a little bit different.
It's more intentional.
It's more intentional. That okay, you practice when you teach someone, you know, he or she practices the tradition or culture, rather than telling stories. Because if you tell me a story, I also just tell it as a story, and it will just end there. I won't practice it. So I think maybe the first thing after telling a story is, you know, teach the youth when they're still young, because when they grow up, they also have things to do with their, you know, it's how life is. So maybe the first thing is to teach them, what you had with your, you know, tradition and so forth. And the second thing you said about when you come to school, and you know, the education is packed with things in civics, and you know, in history we also study about other things, you know. When you know you read a word and you're told that it comes from a Greek word, okay, it makes sense. It's the origin, you know, it makes sense. But I personally, for example, I love to, you know about the other traditions, you know. Let's say, like, you know, people from there, how do they greet each other? What is their tradition? Maybe if something like that would be in our curriculum, let's say, it'd be interesting. I would know a lot more about my country, and you know, all those other things. The same way I love to just know about my own tradition, you know, not only being passed on by the parents, but also in our education curriculum. I'd love to know more about, you know, what is happening in my heritage, and also include the other things in this world, like what happened, you know, in South Africa or wherever else, you know, not just reading about those places, but also what is in my country, you know, what do I need to know. This and that would be very interesting, I think.
That's very nice. And as you're talking about it, I just asked myself, like, how often do we have, because you're talking about more practicability, so in the curriculum, so it's not just about learning the content in, you know, books and all, but also through interactions and things like that. And I asked myself, how many events or forums do we have, either in a local context, whereby just, you know, cultural exchange,
I think you'd not
cultural
even have, if they are, then they are very, very, very few. But there is no that much of traditional forums, as you say. I think knowing that might give a person a sense of respect to the other tradition and more knowledge. It's easier even for me to, you know, reach to someone else, maybe if I'm abroad, and you know, tell a lot about my country, rather than right now I'm not sure if I know much about my own traditions. So,
and you find, like, it's only in weddings, when you go to weddings,
you understand,
party, you hear the, you know, it's the traditional song of a certain group. You are kind of aged already. That's very true. We need to have such grounds, Pan-African events, where actually people from different cultures can interact and learn from each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, as we continue, so what do you think? Let's say into education, because we kind of know what the problem is, yeah, and maybe our viewers can help us suggest a little bit, because yeah, we have some few sayings here. Kevin says heritage at times defines belonging, and he say I will defend positive culture, but then unfortunately there is culture that is against human rights, like FGM, what he says. And another comment is, it's important to make upcoming generations understand their historical heritage. Understanding heritage makes audiences aware about what was historical and defines the present. Yeah. Yes, that's what.
Yeah, I like that definition of belonging. It's true.
Yeah. So I think it's what we just we was elaborating, and I get an emphasis on it. Yeah. So yeah. Back to education. What do you think should be maybe added into it so that heritage can be embraced and
yeah, I think we are not, when it comes to education, okay, it's just, we need to see who are we addressing. If we are addressing a certain generation, which majority right now, Africa, Tanzanian, it's a young generation, and we are the ones who are in the risk of, forgetting or losing our heritage. So if we are targeting the young people, we should try to understand our context. How do we interact? How do we absorb, learning materials and things like that? So we need to be the center of innovation in terms of heritage.
Of
so we cannot just give the young people stuff. We need to involve them. Like, how do they want to take their heritage and be the champions of, of taking it forward and, and ahead. So that is how I would say. So that means young people should be in the center of this discussion. How would young people be engaged to make sure that heritage does not get lost? And how would they want it to be communicated using education, using technology? And I think we'll find a lot of answers.
Yeah, is that how you have said it? I think now I kind of understand, because you have said that how do they address heritage, to this generation? I think the issue is, because the issue is the youth are already equipped with technology, but not so much with the heritage, the traditions and culture. So I think it's hard for us to link, our heritage and technology, because it's not so much we know about, the traditions and cultures. So we just stick with technology and go through with whatever comes with it. Okay.
And we end up importing,
importing
from the last session, because we don't.
So now we're kind of back into the last section.
Yes. The last.
Yes. Now I think maybe you should do an education and technology session. I think I'm not sure. So we'll look into it and So we have a issue of education. As we study our heritage, as I've said before, not so much is put into our own heritage. I mean, the tradition and cultures. It's not so much we are taught about it. So I was thinking maybe if we do not know so much, the way we learn the history, should we have like maybe another subject, because it can be said that history is, the past events. That's how history is. Do you think maybe you should have like a new subject or curriculum about, just speaking only about our heritage? Maybe you could know much, how do you think about that? It's just a thought.
Yeah, well, it's, as I'm thinking of it, it's like rebranding.
Yeah.
It's like rebranding. So maybe the way it's branded in history, civics, it doesn't make sense. But again, it comes back again to the same generation. Like we can change a lot of things, but if the targeted people are not involved, then we're not going to change anything. Yeah. So basically, we need to have the people that we are targeting, and again, I'll go back to how they want it to be packaged, and how they want it to be communicated. Because, and once they are in the center of it all, then it's easier to do it. Yeah. So however, and again, it's not about the content is one thing, and how that content is being presented again. So yes, I can come up with so many ideas of how we can communicate or teach heritage to young people. They can, like photography tells a lot, which a lot of young people love photography.
Yes.
Like movies. We can do movies to tell about our history. Even it's looking at what we have and look at how we can transform it or repackage it. So you look at, I'll give an example of South African museum, the Nelson Mandela. It's so beautiful. It's so trendy. It talks about the things that happened during apartheid and all, but the way it is. As young people, I think they would love to be there. There are even comics about the history. There's different sections, there's screens that show different events. The way it is, it attracts a young person, a child, to go spend a day in that museum, just like that. But if I look at Tanzania, let's say Kaole, the ruins, as an example, it's, the ruins, they're keeping on ruining. And it's not appealing for me to go spend a day, or let's say for a younger person to go spend a day, because it's hot, sunny, and the ruins are really like ruins. It's not attractive. Like they don't spice it up, the place, or something like that. Or if I go to Zanzibar, to places where, it's not. So the preservation, the presentation, it's not much is being transformed to attract. So if you ask a young person to spend a day gaming or go to Kaole, they would rather game or go to swimming than go to learn about the ruins, because everything is just the way it's packaged is not attractive compared to, let's say, the South African example that I've been to, and perhaps other developed countries have centers, galleries, and the way it is really great to go and learn. So,
okay. So basically, you are saying the preservation of the. Is it
preservation? Yes, the way the presentation of it. It's not transformed. It's not it's not appealing. It's not attracting for the people that we are targeting. So if we change that, maybe it can bring a different.
Thank you. So we have some few comments here from Kevin. He says yes, curriculum on heritage is ideal, and such content can be curated and provided online. So maybe something can be made, and people can study and read it online, and about several traditions and culture. And he also says this is brilliant content. So thank you, Kevin. And Kalimbia, thank you for joining. Also, he says again, this is last comment. Heritage could even revolve around packaging content on leadership in East African region. So thank you guys. It has been a half an hour now already. So we've been talking too much. I think we are even past a half an hour. And thank you for joining us. The session today was really brilliant. I can't even conclude it, because it's so huge.
I want to cut you short just before you. I want to say what we do today is going to be passed on to the next generation, and it matters a lot how we do it as young people and how we package it. Like this talk, maybe 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the line.
We definitely gonna put it on YouTube.
Yes, and someone will want to know, will get inspired and want to know about their past, you know?
Yeah.
So how we do things today, how we package them, it is going to be a part of heritage a few years to come. What we speak and how we engage ourselves. So we have to be very careful.
Of course.
Because we are going to be part of the heritage. Our environment, how we take care of it, how we look after ourselves and our things, you know. So we have to be also very cautious and careful the way we conduct our lives, taking care of what is given and, you know, the sustainability thing.
So maybe I just can say some easy thing. Just let's educate our fellows and let's try to learn ourselves about the culture and our own tradition. Yeah, I think that way we can. It's easier to embrace what we know and what we have. So the session will also be available on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is Nani. Yeah, and there are also several sessions with discussions we did, so you can just open your YouTube and subscribe there and you'll see all the videos and watch. And thank you guys for being with us. See you next week. Thank you. This is Madam FALECIA and Sebastian.
Bye.
Bye.
Please follow and subscribe to our social media pages or contact us to register for our programs.